Chapter 3. The Aftermath. The Decepticons had retreated as suddenly as they'd attacked. Now, the only question was why. Why did they attack in the first place? 5 of the 7 sweeps had been destroyed. Brawl had taken heavy damage from Ramhorn's charge. Onslaught himself was functional, but had burned through most of his ammunition fighting Jazz. On the Autobot side, the casualties were lighter, but more painful. Trax and Smokescreen had recovered Wheelie's body and laid it out for Perceptor to inspect.
Perceptor?
Jazz said, walking up to the large microscope. Perceptor transformed into his robot mode and shook his head.
It's difficult to get a reading,
Perceptor said.
The damage to his body is catastrophic. His spark chamber was breached in multiple places.
Talk English.
I can't determine whether he is alive or not,
Perceptor said, looking at Jazz in confusion.
His body is beyond repair, but I'm still getting a reading from his spark.
That sounds like a problem that's right up your alley.
Jazz said, and then turned to Trax and Smokescreen.
Take his body back to Perceptor's lab. Don't lose any pieces.
Jazz turned and walked over to Red Alert, and Perceptor turned his attention to one of the sweeps. He was about to walk away when he noticed something. He focused in on the sweep and cocked his head to one side. Then he transformed into his microscope mode and began studying the body of the sweep in earnest.
Right,
Trax said.
Yes, sir.
Smokescreen said and turned to Trax.
You take the big pieces and I'll get the rest.
Why do I have to take the big pieces?
Trax asked, rather indignantly.
They're dirty.
Nothing stays clean in war.
Smokescreen said.
Besides, you can lower your roof, and then you have a larger area to carry him. I don't have that luxury.
Well, I already need a wash, so why not a vacuum too?
Trax said. He transformed into his Corvette mode and then pulled his roof back, convertible style. Smokescreen picked up the largest part of Wheelie and struggled a little to put him on Trax.
Be careful, you'll scratch the paint job.
He's a heavy little bugger.
Smokescreen said, and then looked over everything and added,
Hey, if you move your seats back, I can put him in the driver's seat, and he can look like he's driving.
Very funny.
Trax said and drove away.
I'm just trying to lighten the mood.
Smokescreen said with a shrug.
We know,
Hound said.
but maybe later.
Slightly dejected, Smokescreen transformed into his car and opened the hatchback. Hound picked up the remaining leg and arm from Wheelie, as well as a couple other small pieces, and slid them into the hatch. The hatch closed, and Smokescreen drove away.
Tell me some good news.
Jazz said to Red Alert, who was frantically working on the prone form of Loadout.
He's alive, but barely.
She said.
I've put him into emergency stasis, and I have to stop the hemorrhaging of energon before we can even move him.
How long will that take?
Jazz asked.
Not long.
She said.
The biggest problem is moving him. He's not a small bot.
We got this.
Mirage said.
Hound, we need your help over here.
Across the battlefield, human first responders were working in coordination with the remaining Autobots. Casualties were being triaged, the wounded were being transported to hospitals, and the dead were being respectfully covered until they could be moved. Nora stood among them, her hands still shaking from adrenaline, a bandage wrapped around the cut on her palm from breaking the bus windshield. Sitting next to her was Gearjammer. He was going to ensure his human mother was good, even if it meant ignoring a direct order from Jazz to do it. She put a hand on Gearjammer's large leg and smiled up at her son. Then she looked over at the massive form of Loadout, lying still under Red Alert's ministrations. He'd saved those 2 children, thrown himself into danger without hesitation, held up an entire building, and then fought off Decepticons while barely functional.
Ma'am?
A paramedic approached her.
You should get checked out. You might have a concussion.
Yeah, Mom, Gearjammer said. You did what you could, and you helped save a bunch of people. You should let them check you out, make sure you're all right. Nora nodded absently, and she smiled up at Gearjammer.
You helped too.
She said.
I watched you dig out Perceptor and then helped with your father. I'm proud of you, son.
Thanks, Mom. I love you.
Gearjammer, we need you over here.
Blaster hollered over to him.
I love you too.
Nora said.
I'll be fine. You'd better go.
I'll see you later, Mom, Gearjammer said, standing up.
See you later. Patrick.
She said quietly as she watched her son help Blaster, Mirage, and Red Alert hoist Loadout's torso onto Hound before turning and following the first responder.
It's going to take 3 of us just to carry Loadout back to Autobot City.
Red Alert said.
Hound will be under his torso. Mirage will take 1 leg, and I'll take the other.
I'll take 1 leg, Gearjammer said.
You might...
Red Alert began but was immediately cut off. He's my dad, Gearjammer said rather insistently. Red Alert looked at him, and then beyond him to Jazz. Jazz silently nodded once.
All right, you will need to work as a team on this.
Red Alert said. I understand, Gearjammer said, and transformed into his car mode.
Will you hurry up? This guy's heavy.
Hound said, nearly invisible under the massive torso of Loadout. Blaster and Red Alert lifted one of Loadout's legs, and Mirage drove under it. Then it was Gearjammer's turn. When everything was set, Loadout was secure, being carried by 3 Autobots. Red Alert transformed and followed the makeshift convoy back to the infirmary in Autobot City.
I know he's heavy, but take it slow.
Jazz said,
We don't want to add insult to injury by dropping him. Blaster, you follow them. They're going to need your help getting him on a table.
You got it.
Blaster said, and transformed into his boombox, then shrunk down to fit in the passenger seat of Red Alert. The going was slow, but to his credit, Gearjammer was able to keep in line with the others. It seemed to take forever, but finally they pulled into Autobot City, and from there, it wasn't a problem rolling into the infirmary. Blaster was the first one to transform into robot mode, and he and Red Alert grabbed the leg they were closest to, which was the one Mirage was carrying. Gearjammer was next, and when all of them were free, they grabbed onto Loadout's upper body and lifted so Hound could roll out from under him.
Grab that table.
Red Alert said, her voice straining.
Grab 2 tables.
Blaster said. Hound slid 1 table over to them, and under Loadout. The rest of them eased Loadout down on the table, and then adjusted his body so that it was fully being supported by the table. Gearjammer moved to Loadout's side out of Red Alert's way, but still close to his father, and got his first close look at the damage. His father's armor was cracked in dozens of places, energon still seeping slowly from the worst fractures. One optic was completely dark, and his left arm hung at an unnatural angle.
First aid. I need the neural stabilizer.
Red Alert called out. A smaller Autobot, white and red, built more compactly than the others, rolled over a specialized equipment cart.
Already prepped and ready. Red Alert.
Thank you.
Red Alert took the device and carefully attached it to Loadout's head, just behind where his ears would be as a human. Then she positioned what looked like a surgical table over Loadout's torso. Multiple mechanical arms extended from the apparatus, each one tipped with different tools, welders, scanners, micro-manipulators. The arms came to life with soft whirs and clicks, beginning the delicate work of sealing energon leaks and stabilizing cracked armor plates. What happened? Gearjammer asked, wiping a smear of energon off of Loadout's face. His voice was quieter than usual, almost subdued.
One of the sweeps got him while he was protecting Wheelie,
Blaster said. He paused, then corrected himself.
Well, technically the building got him, but he was only under the building because he saved those 2 human kids. Then he took on 2 sweeps in his condition.
The sound of multiple engines approaching made them all turn toward the door. 3 more vehicles raced into the infirmary: a black and red Jeep Cherokee, a black and pink Polaris Slingshot, and a blue and silver Ducati motorcycle, this one with a woman driver. The Jeep and Slingshot transformed smoothly into Ember and Amethyst, respectively. The motorcycle stayed in vehicle form until Nora climbed off, removing a helmet and securing it in an attached saddlebag. Only then did the Ducati transform into Chase, the smallest of the sparklings. Nora stayed next to Chase, her hand instinctively reaching out to rest on his forearm. Gearjammer looked back at the unconscious loadout before he spun around, transformed back into his sports car mode, and peeled out of the infirmary, tires screeching all the way out until he was out of earshot. An uncomfortable silence filled the room.
I'll go talk to him,
Blaster said, already heading for the door. The 3 remaining sparklings moved closer to the medical bed, staring at their father's still form. Amethyst, her wheel feet allowing her to glide smoothly across the floor, skated around to the top of the bed, right next to Loadout's head.
When will he wake up?
She asked, her voice small and worried. Red Alert glanced at the diagnostic readouts scrolling across her monitor. Energon pressure was stabilizing. Structural integrity was at 43% and climbing. Neural activity was nominal but suppressed. Spark output was steady.
That's tough to say.
Red Alert said, her attention divided between the sparklings and the repair arms working on Loadout.
The damage was extensive, and his systems need time to regenerate. But I assure you, he will wake up. Your father's spark is very strong, and when he does, I will be sure to contact you immediately.
She tried a reassuring smile, though she wasn't sure how well it worked out. She hadn't been much for bedside manner since Ratchet had been killed. Ember, the tallest of the 3 sparklings, moved to stand on Loadout's other side. Her black and red armor caught the light from the medical equipment, and she reached out one hand to gently touch her father's arm, one of the few places that wasn't covered in diagnostic equipment or repair apparatus.
He looks so...
She started, then couldn't find the words to finish.
He's not dead, is he?
Chase asked loudly.
Chase!
Amethyst scolded.
What?
Chase asked, his childlike innocence on the verge of breaking, and it showed on his face.
He'll be fine,
Amethyst said, reaching out to place her hand on his head.
You'll see.
Girls, we should let Red Alert do her job,
Nora said, though her voice lacked its usual firmness.
Oliver, I want you to come home with me.
I'm Chase,
the small blue Autobot said, a note of pride in his voice. Nora blinked, then managed a smile.
I know, sweetheart. That's what I said. Chase, I want you to come home with me.
She looked at her daughters.
Girls, I think Perceptor needs help with the damage assessments. He's trying to catalog everything that happened during that attack.
But...
Ember began protesting, her hand still on her father's arm.
There's nothing you can do here except get in Red Alert's way,
Nora said, and there was a hint of her usual steel creeping back into her voice.
I'm sorry, but that's the truth. You should go help Perceptor, if for no other reason than it will distract you so you're not constantly thinking about this.
On the table, Loadout twitched. It was a small movement, barely noticeable. His head swiveled slightly, and his functional optic flickered with brief light before dimming again.
What's happening?
Amethyst asked, alarm clear in her voice.
Is he waking up?
Red Alert's attention snapped fully to her patient and her monitors.
I don't know,
She said, studying the neural activity readouts. The patterns spiked and settled.
His higher cognitive functions are still offline, but there's activity in his memory core.
Looks like he's dreaming,
Nora said matter-of-factly.
She might be right.
Red Alert said with a note of curiosity in her voice.
It's not uncommon for Cybertronians to replay memories while they are in stasis. It's probably not too far off from humans dreaming.
He'll be fine.
Nora said with more confidence than the situation warranted.
Now, Chase, please transform and take me home.
The small blue Autobot looked uncertainly at his sisters, then at his unconscious father, then back to his mother.
You heard Mom.
Ember said quietly.
We're going to go help Perceptor, and then we'll be home.
Okay,
Chase said. He dove forward, his compact frame folding and reconfiguring mid-motion until a blue and silver Ducati motorcycle stood where the sparkling had been. The helmet that had been stored in the attached saddlebag popped out automatically. Nora pulled the helmet on, a necessity when your 6-year-old son was also a high-performance motorcycle who thought speed limits were suggestions, and climbed onto the seat.
Goodbye, girls,
she said, her voice slightly muffled by the helmet.
Be good. Listen to Perceptor. And Red Alert.
Bye, Mom, Ember and Amethyst echoed in unison. Chase's engine revved once, then he drove smoothly out of the infirmary, Nora holding on securely. The sound of his engine faded gradually, unlike Gear Jammer's earlier dramatic exit. Red Alert watched them go, then smiled again at the 2 remaining sparklings. It was easier to smile now, without Nora's complicated presence in the room. The human woman made everything feel more tense, somehow, as if the air itself became negatively charged when she was near loadout.
You really should do what she said.
Red Alert told Ember and Amethyst gently.
Perceptor does need your help, and nothing good is going to come of you standing around here while I work. Your father needs quiet and stability right now.
Ember looked like she wanted to argue, but after a moment she just nodded.
All right, will you call us the moment he wakes up?
The very instant.
Red Alert promised.
Okay.
Amethyst said sadly, her wheels making soft sounds against the floor as she reluctantly backed away from the bed.
Bye, Dad.
Ember whispered, touching his arm again.
Get better soon.
Yeah.
Amethyst added.
We need you.
Then they transformed, the Jeep and the slingshot, and drove slowly out of the infirmary, their engines quiet and subdued. Red Alert watched them go, then turned her full attention back to her patient. First Aid had moved to the monitoring station, keeping track of all the readings, while Red Alert directed the repair arms. Loadout twitched again on the medical bed, his head swiveling from side to side in small, jerky movements. His functional optic was flickering rapidly, almost like a strobe light. Red Alert watched him for a long moment, her medical curiosity warring with her sense of privacy. She shouldn't intrude on a patient's unconscious processing. It was invasive, inappropriate, but hybrid Autobots were still so new, so unknown. Understanding how their human consciousness integrated with Cybertronian neural architecture could be crucial for future medical treatments. At least, that's what she told herself as she moved to her computer terminal.
You are dreaming, aren't you?
She said quietly to her unconscious patient, her fingers already moving across the keyboard. A separate monitor flickered to life, displaying lines of code and diagnostic readouts. Red Alert hesitated one more moment, then activated the neural playback protocol. The technical readouts gave way to images, grainy, incomplete, filtered through the lens of memory and trauma, but recognizable. What appeared on screen made her catch her breath. 4 human children were playing in a park, their laughter almost audible even without sound. They ranged in age from teenager down to kindergartner Patrick, Cadence, Rory, and Oliver, though Red Alert only knew them by their Autobot designations. The image quality was poor, like watching through someone's eyes, but the joy was unmistakable. The youngest, Oliver, she realized, was suddenly lifted into the air by arms that entered the frame from both sides of the visual field. The camera perspective. Seth's perspective. The little boy's face lit up with pure happiness. "I love you, Daddy," he said, his small voice full of absolute trust and security. Then he wiggled free with the determined energy of a 6-year-old and ran off toward a playground structure. Red Alert felt something tighten in her chest. This was before everything changed.
You're not dreaming, you're remembering.
She murmured and flicked her eyes at first aid. The bot was still facing away, not paying any attention to her. The memory shifted, the visual field panning across the park. Seth was watching all 4 of his children, Patrick tossing a football with friends, Cadence reading under a tree, Rory on the swings, Oliver climbing on the playground equipment. A perfect moment of ordinary human family life. Then the sky exploded. The transition was so sudden that Red Alert actually jerked back from the monitor. 1 second, peaceful park. The next, a massive Cybertronian form crashed through the tree line, its footfalls shaking the ground hard enough to topple smaller trees. More followed. Decepticons, at least a dozen of them, rampaging through the human city with no regard for the fragile, organic life around them. Buildings crumbled. Vehicles were crushed like tin cans. And everywhere, humans were screaming, running, dying.
Patrick! Grab Oliver!
Seth's voice shouted from behind the visual field, his own voice, but human, filled with the kind of terror only a parent facing their children's death could know.
Cadence, Rory, run! Come quickly! Back to Daddy's truck!
At the same time, Loadout's mouth moved on the medical bed, the words silent, but clearly matching the memory. The perspective swung around wildly, searching. Red Alert watched as Seth's visual field found his children, all 4 of them huddled together near a destroyed playground, Oliver crying, Rory holding him, Cadence trying to shield both of them while Patrick stood protectively in front of his siblings. The view moved quickly toward them, and Red Alert realized Seth must have been running, weaving between debris and abandoned vehicles. A massive shadow fell across the family, and the perspective looked up to see an enormous Decepticon stomping through the parking lot nearby.
Whoa.
Red Alert whispered, her medical detachment cracking.
That Decepticon was huge. I never realized how scary we must be to the humans.
The scale was terrifying. From Seth's human perspective, the Decepticon looked like a walking building, each footstep capable of crushing anything underneath. And here was this human man, this father, running toward his children despite the danger, not away from it. The perspective ushered the 4 children into a large green 18-wheeler, Seth's truck, the one that would eventually be scanned and become Loadout's alt mode. The kids scrambled into the cab, Oliver still crying, the older ones trying to be brave. Seth climbed in after them, and the perspective shifted to show the interior of the cab. All 4 children were there, pressed against the back of the sleeper compartment, their eyes wide with fear.
It's okay,
Seth's voice said, though it was shaking.
Daddy's got you. We're getting out of here.
The truck's engine roared to life. Through the windshield, Red Alert could see the chaos of the Decepticon attack continuing. Seth was trying to navigate through the destruction, looking for an escape route. Then something massive struck the truck from the side. The world tumbled. Red Alert watched through Seth's eyes as the truck rolled, metal screaming, glass shattering. The children's screams were awful, high-pitched, terrified, cut off suddenly by impacts. When the rolling stopped, the truck was somehow back on its tires, though a couple of them had been shredded. Seth's perspective was skewed, disoriented, and when his vision focused, Red Alert wished she could look away. The interior of the cab was painted red, human blood, so much of it. Patrick was pinned against the dashboard, his arm bent at an impossible angle, blood streaming from a head wound. Cadence was unconscious, a piece of metal from the door embedded in her shoulder. Rory was making a horrible gurgling sound, her small body nearly buried under debris. And Oliver, little Oliver, wasn't moving at all.
No!
The scream that tore from Seth's throat, from Loadout's throat on the medical bed, was pure anguish. Seth's perspective looked down at his own body. His left arm was missing, severed above the elbow, bone and tissue visible through the torn sleeve. A metal pole, part of the truck's frame, had punched through his abdomen. He was bleeding out, dying, and his children were dying around him. But through the shattered windshield he could see something else. A Decepticon, standing in the wreckage, laughing. The purple and white color scheme was distinctive.
Is that Ramjet?
Red Alert said, trying to focus on tactical identification instead of the horror of what she was watching.
You!
Seth's voice said, filled with hatred so pure it was almost tangible. Loadout's body twitched on the medical bed, his hands clenching.
You will never.
Seth's remaining hand grabbed the steering wheel. The truck was damaged, leaking fluids, but the engine was still running. His perspective showed him working the controls awkwardly with one hand, his vision swimming from blood loss.
Hurt anyone? Again?
The truck shifted, metal groaning. Seth's foot found the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, picking up speed despite the damage. Red Alert watched the speedometer climb through Seth's failing vision. 30 miles per hour, 40, 50. The Decepticon, Ramjet, was still laughing, not even paying attention to the damaged human vehicle. 60 miles per hour, 70. Seth's perspective was locked on Ramjet now, tunnel vision from blood loss, from determination, from the absolute certainty that if he was going to die, he was taking this monster with him. The truck hit a curb, launched into the air. Seth's war cry, incoherent, primal, desperate, filled the audio track of the memory. At 70 miles per hour, 28 tons of Kenworth slammed into Ramjet like a missile. The Decepticon's surprised expression was visible for just a split second before the truck crushed him against a concrete building, metal shrieking, energon and human blood mixing in the wreckage. The screen went dark. Red Alert sat frozen, her hand over her mouth. Had she been wearing pearls, she would have been clutching them. She'd known the basics of what had happened. Everyone did, but seeing it, experiencing it through Seth's eyes. The darkness lifted as Seth's perspective showed a piece of twisted metal being moved away. Perceptor's face filled the view, his optical sensors wide with concern.
Fear not, sir. We are here to help,
Perceptor said with his characteristic formality, even in crisis.
Forget about me.
Seth's voice was so weak now, fading.
Help my kids. You gotta save my kids.
Perceptor looked into the cab. Red Alert could see his optics assess the carnage. His expression shifted, became grave. 4 children, all critically injured. No human medical technology could save them in time, not with injuries like these. Perceptor nodded slowly, his processor clearly calculating odds, considering options.
Sir, just relax. We'll have you out of there in no time,
he said, buying time while his tactical subroutines ran through possibilities.
No, you're not listening to me.
Seth's voice cracked, tears mixing with blood on his face. Red Alert could see it through the perspective, the way his vision was tunneling, fading at the edges. He was dying.
My kids, my children are my world. They are the only thing I've done right in this life. You gotta help them. There's gotta be something you can do. Anything, anything.
Perceptor looked left, then right, checking for Jazz, for any other Autobots who might have input on this decision. But they were alone. Just a dying father, 4 dying children, and a scientist who had a theory. An untested, dangerous theory.
Anything, man. Please. Save my kids!
Seth begged, his remaining hand reaching out toward Perceptor, blood dripping from his fingers. Perceptor's face filled the screen again.
There might be something,
he said slowly, carefully.
It's risky, and success is not guaranteed.
I don't care, man.
Seth's vision was blurring now. Red Alert realized it was from tears, not just blood loss.
Help them, please.
It is a one-time shot in the dark that, if successful, is irreversible.
Perceptor warned.
I would be attempting to merge human consciousness with Cybertronian technology. The procedure has never been tested. They would not be human anymore. They would be something else.
They deserve a chance,
Seth said, his voice fading to barely a whisper.
They deserve so much better than me. Please give them a chance. Tell them I love them. Tell them...
The screen went blank. Red Alert sat in silence, staring at the empty monitor. She understood now. Understood why Loadout was so protective, why he blamed himself for what happened to his children. He'd been dying, thought he was giving them their only chance at life, and woke up to find he was one of them, transformed into the very thing he'd been trying to protect them from. He'd never meant to become Autobot. He'd meant to die, taking Ramjet with him. A groan from the medical bed snapped her attention back. Loadout was trying to sit up, his damaged systems protesting the movement. Red Alert quickly hit the button to shut down the neural playback.
How are you awake? No, don't try to move,
she said, grabbing his hand with one of hers and gently pushing him back down with the other.
The repair systems are still working. You're not fully healed yet.
Loadout's optic focused on her, clarity returning.
Where are my kids?
He asked immediately.
The sparklings were here,
Red Alert assured him, keeping her voice calm and professional despite what she'd just witnessed.
They're all safe. Gearjammer left quickly. Blaster went after him to talk. Ember and Amethyst went back to help Perceptor with damage assessment, and Chase is with Nora.
Loadout nodded slowly, processing this information. He laid his head back on the bed, but his systems were clearly running through tactical assessments.
Something was very wrong about that attack,
he said after a moment.
Tell me about it.
Red Alert agreed, grateful to focus on present problems instead of past trauma.
The Decepticons used a suicide bomber to cover them for a surprise attack, and then we lost Wheelie.
She saw the pain flash across Loadout's features at Wheelie's name.
How did they know about the suicide bomber?
Loadout asked, his tactical mind working despite his injuries.
And why did we only lose Wheelie? If they wanted to do maximum damage, they could have killed more of us. We were spread thin, focused on rescue operations, but they specifically targeted Wheelie. Why?
Red Alert hadn't considered that. She'd been so focused on treating casualties and coordinating medical response that she hadn't analyzed the tactical pattern.
I don't know,
she admitted.
But you need to rest. You lost a lot of energon. I'm sure Jazz is figuring out everything.
Is Jazz back yet?
Loadout asked, trying to sit up again. Red Alert pressed him back down, her hand still holding his.
No. He's still out there coordinating with human authorities and securing the area. But you need to rest. Your self-repair systems can't work properly if you keep trying to get up.
Loadout looked at her for a long moment, and she wondered if he could see in her optics that she'd witnessed his memory. But he just nodded.
I will.
He said quietly.
But will you tell me when he's back? We need to figure out what happened out there.
Yes.
Red Alert promised.
The moment Jazz returns, I'll wake you.
Thank you.
Loadout said, and she could hear the exhaustion in his voice. His systems were already pulling him back toward recharge, his body demanding the rest it needed to heal. Red Alert stayed by his bed, holding his hand until his optic dimmed and his systems settled into repair mode. Only then did she release her grip and step back. She looked at the darkened monitor, thought about the memory it had displayed, thought about a human man so desperate to save his children that he'd agreed to turn them into something unknown, something alien. And she thought about that same man, now metal and circuits instead of flesh and blood, still trying to protect everyone around him, still willing to throw himself into danger, still carrying the guilt of a choice he'd made while dying. Red Alert turned back to her work, adjusting the repair protocols and monitoring Loadout's energon levels. He wasn't the only patient in her ward, but he was the one who seemed to occupy her mind. Several hours later, the infirmary was quiet, except for the soft hum of medical equipment and the rhythmic pulse of Loadout's spark. Red Alert had stepped out briefly, just a few minutes, to refuel and clear her processor. Even medical officers needed breaks during long repair sessions. Amethyst rolled silently through the door, her wheel feet making barely a whisper against the polished floor. She looked around the empty infirmary, saw that Red Alert wasn't at her station, and glided over to her father's bed. She stopped next to the table, looking up at the massive green Autobot lying there. The repair arms were still working, their movements precise and mechanical, sealing fractures and reinforcing damaged plating. Energon no longer leaked from the worst wounds, but her father still looked broken, diminished in a way that frightened her. Amethyst reached up and grabbed his large hand in both of hers. Her small fingers barely wrapped around 2 of his digits, but she held on tight, as if she could anchor him there through sheer determination. She watched him for a long moment, studying the slow rhythm of his optical shutters, the slight movements of his chest plating as his systems cycled air through his cooling vents. He looked peaceful, despite everything, almost like he was just sleeping.
Please be okay,
she whispered, so quietly that even if Red Alert had been there, she wouldn't have heard.
We need you, Daddy. I need you.
As if responding to her voice, Loadout's good optic slowly brightened. His head moved slightly, turning toward the sound. One of his optics was still dark and offline, but the other glowing with awareness. When he saw Amethyst standing there, holding his hand, he smiled. It was a small smile, limited by damaged facial actuators, but it was genuine. She smiled back, relief flooding through her systems.
Hi, sweetie,
Loadout said quietly, his voice rough but warm.
Hi, Daddy.
Amethyst's smile widened.
I'm glad you're awake.
Loadout's functional optic focused more clearly, taking in his surroundings, the infirmary, the repair equipment, his daughter's worried face.
Where were you guys?
He asked.
After everything?
Perceptor had us helping with the cleanup and looking for survivors,
Amethyst said. Her voice took on a note of pride, mixed with sadness.
Ember was really good at finding people trapped in rubble. She could hear them calling for help from really far away.
That's good.
Loadout's smile grew slightly.
Did you find many?
A few.
Amethyst looked down at the medical table and the repair arms still working on his torso. Her expression shifted from pride to concern.
How did this happen? Red Alert said you were hurt protecting Wheelie, but...
A Decepticon stabbed me.
Loadout said, his tactical processors already reviewing the battle sequence.
Right before... That reminds me you're back. Is Jazz back too?
Yeah, he's in the control room.
Amethyst said.
He's talking to Rodimus Prime on the big monitor.
I have to go see him.
Loadout released Amethyst's hand and sat up abruptly, his damaged systems protesting with warning chimes. The medical table jerked to the side as his weight shifted, repair arms retracting automatically to avoid damage.
Dad, you're still bleeding.
Amethyst said, alarm spiking through her voice. She could see fresh energon seeping from partially sealed wounds where his movement had stressed the repairs.
This is important, sweetie,
Loadout said, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. His right leg nearly buckled when he put weight on it, but he caught himself on the edge of the table.
I'll come right back. I promise.
Amethyst knew that tone. It was the same one he'd used when he was human, when he'd told them he had to deploy again. That duty called. She'd never been able to argue with that tone then, and she couldn't now.
Okay,
She said quietly, skating around to his damaged side to help support him. There was no way she could actually hold up her father's massive weight, but she could at least try.
but you better keep that promise.
Loadout looked down at her, and his expression softened.
I always do, don't I?
He took a step, then another, each one leaving small droplets of energon on the floor. Amethyst stayed close, her small hands braced against his leg plating, ready to help if he fell. They made it to the door, and Loadout leaned heavily on the frame as it slid open. He tried to control his momentum as he moved into the hallway, but it was more like a barely controlled fall that he managed to turn into forward motion.
I'll be right back,
he told Amethyst.
Go find Red Alert and let her know where I went.
Dad!
Now, Rory.
He used her human name, the one that meant he was being serious.
Please.
Amethyst's wheels spun as she took off down the hallway in the opposite direction, her pink and black form quickly disappearing around a corner. Loadout took a breath, unnecessary for his systems, but a human habit he couldn't break, and began the agonizing journey to the control room. Each step was a negotiation with his damaged frame. His right leg actuator was barely functional, making every movement unsteady. His left shoulder was locked up completely, throwing off his balance, and the damage to his torso sent spikes of feedback through his systems with every motion. But he kept moving, because this was important. The control room door slid open ahead of him. He could see Jazz standing in front of the main monitor, Rodimus Prime's distinctive face visible on the screen. The two were deep in conversation about the attack.
Perceptor had one of the sweep's bodies brought to the lab.
Jazz was saying.
He thinks there was something fishy about how they were acting.
Jazz,
Loadout said, and managed a controlled crash into the doorframe, spraying energon from reopened wounds. He would have fallen to the floor if he hadn't have jammed the fingers of his good hand into the wall above the door, and basically hung there. Jazz spun around at the crash, his expression shifting from surprise to concern to irritation in rapid succession.
Why are you out of the infirmary?
He demanded.
There's something you need to know about the attack today,
Loadout said, leaning against the wall to support himself. He looked down at his other arm and tried to lift it, but it wouldn't budge. On the monitor, Rodimus Prime leaned forward, his optics focusing on the damaged Autobot who'd just crashed into the control room.
Who is that? Identify yourself,
Rodimus said.
My name is Loadout, sir,
Loadout said. He leaned back and lurched himself to the side, smashing his shoulder into the door jamb. There was a crunch, and glowing green energon leaked out from his shoulder socket. It seemed to work, because his shoulder loosened enough for him to be able to lift his arm and brace himself against the door jamb to help support himself. Rodimus's optics narrowed slightly.
Loadout. Were you programmed for tactical analysis?
I wasn't programmed for anything, sir.
Loadout answered.
Loadout is one of Perceptor's new hybrid experiments.
Jazz said to Rodimus.
Human consciousness merged with Cybertronian frames. He's only been operational as an Autobot for 6 months.
Fascinating.
Rodimus said, genuine interest in his voice.
You can tell me about how that's going after this. I'm curious to find out what analysis is so important that he left medical treatment to report it.
Jazz crossed his arms, his posture shifting to full attention.
All right, Loadout. You've got our attention. What did you see that we missed?
That entire attack was a setup,
he said, his voice steady.
Everything. The suicide bomber, the building collapsing, the scattered engagement pattern, it was all a cover so the Decepticons could get their hands on Wheelie.
Jazz's expression shifted to skepticism.
They killed Wheelie, Loadout. That's the opposite of getting their hands on him.
No other Autobots died in the attack,
Loadout said.
Think about it, sir. They somehow coordinated their assault with a suicide bomber to ensure maximum confusion and dispersion of our forces. Then they systematically tried to neutralize our heavy hitters. They buried me under a building, trapped Blaster inside a building, pinned Perceptor under a collapsed train bridge. They tried to make it so that we were preoccupied helping ourselves and the civilians that we wouldn't be able to stop them. Or at the very least be less effective.
He paused, his processor running through the combat data his systems had recorded.
The sweep that attacked me, why did he use a blade?
What do you mean?
Jazz asked.
He had a gun. Why didn't he just shoot me?
Loadout's functional optic brightened with intensity.
Point-blank range, perfect target, I couldn't have dodged it. Not in this condition. But he stabbed me instead. A blade wound is painful, debilitating, but it's survivable with proper medical attention. Attention that could be used to fight off Decepticons. A shot to the head would have been instant death, and there's one less fighter. But a wounded fighter takes more fighters out of the fight because they have to deal with their downed comrade.
Jazz and Rodimus exchanged glances.
Maybe you're just lucky,
Jazz said, though his voice lacked conviction.
With all due respect, sir, it wasn't luck,
Loadout said.
Their purpose in that attack was Wheelie. I saw one of the sweeps had connected a cable to Wheelie's head, and I can only assume the reason was that he was attempting to download something from Wheelie's memory core.
Both Jazz and Rodimus exchanged glances again. This time they held each other's gaze for longer.
Wheelie knows something,
Loadout continued.
And he doesn't have to be alive for the Decepticons to extract that information. They killed him because dead bots can't resist the download.
Can we be sure they didn't get what they were looking for?
Rodimus asked.
Yes, sir,
Loadout said.
I took out that sweep before he was finished, and then I saw something.
Loadout's leg buckled slightly, and he caught himself against the wall.
What's something?
Jazz asked.
It was like a ghostly form, translucent, pulling away from the sweep's body. It was probably just a systems glitch from my damage, but...
A ghost?
Jazz's skepticism was clear.
Loadout, you were severely damaged. Your optical processors were probably malfunctioning.
Most likely.
Rodimus agreed, though his tone was kind.
Energon loss can cause all sorts of sensor glitches.
Loadout nodded, accepting their assessment, even though he wasn't entirely convinced.
You're probably right, but, if I may, I'd suggest Perceptor take a closer look at that sweep, sir.
What could Wheelie have known that would be worth sacrificing sweeps to obtain?
Jazz asked Rodimus, steering the conversation back to the tactical analysis.
I don't know,
Rodimus said, his expression growing serious.
But we need to find out. Have Perceptor scan every circuit in Wheelie's memory core. I'm going to have a team search the Hall of Records on Cybertron, cross-reference anything connected to Wheelie, no matter how minor it seems.
The sound of rapid footsteps, or rather, one set of running feet and one set of rapid skating, announced Amethyst's return. Red Alert got to Loadout first.
There you are,
Red Alert said, coming up under one arm. Her voice carried equal parts relief and exasperation.
What were you thinking?
She took in Loadout's condition, the fresh energon leaking from his wounds, the way he was barely standing, the damage that had worsened from his journey to the control room.
Understood,
Jazz said to Rodimus, then turned to Loadout with an expression that mixed respect with firm authority.
Thank you for your report, Loadout. Your tactical analysis may have just given us our first real lead on what the Decepticons are planning. Now get back to the infirmary and don't leave again until Red Alert clears you. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Loadout said and leaned a little bit on Red Alert, but mostly he leaned on the wall.
Come on, you big lug,
Red Alert said.
Back to the infirmary with you.
Her voice was strained. From his weight, from worry, and from affection she wasn't quite ready to acknowledge. Amethyst looked awkwardly from Loadout to Jazz, clearly not knowing the protocol of the situation.
Bye,
She said, waving to Jazz and Rodimus. Then she skated around to help from the other side, her small form providing moral support, if not actual physical assistance.
What did she call him?
Rodimus asked, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Jazz returned the smile, watching as Red Alert and Amethyst helped Loadout limp out of the control room.
I think she likes him,
he said quietly.
Is there cause for concern?
Rodimus asked.
I don't think so,
Jazz said thoughtfully.
Red Alert took it really hard when Ratchet died. Hasn't been quite herself since. Threw herself into work, kept everyone at arm's length. But it seems that Loadout and his family have been good for her. She's more engaged, present.
Good,
Rodimus said.
We need our medical officer at full capacity. Now, getting back to this attack, if Loadout's analysis is correct, we need to consider the possibility that this was just the opening move in something much larger.
Agreed,
Jazz said.
If the Decepticons are willing to sacrifice assets just to access Wheelie's memories, whatever information he has must be critically important.
Find out what it is before they try again.
Understood,
Jazz said.
And Jazz?
Rodimus said.
Keep an eye on that hybrid. 6 months operational and he's already conducting tactical analysis that our veteran units might have missed. Either he's exceptional or we're getting complacent.
Both, probably,
Jazz said with a wry smile.
He was in the American military before the transformation, special forces of some kind. All of his knowledge and experience translated over when Perceptor merged him with the Cybertronian frame.
Interesting,
Rodimus said.
Keep me posted on what's happening on Earth. Rodimus out.
The transmission ended, leaving Jazz alone in the control room with his thoughts and a growing sense that the battle they'd fought today was just the beginning of something much worse.